Channel 2. Oh, bang. Lovely. We're in. We're on. How is everybody? How are we all doing? Are we feeling prepared for what is going to be, I think, one of the best weekends? Well, there's not too much to kind of go up against. It's been a pretty slow start to the year, but I do feel like this race is set up to be by far and away the best one of the season so far. Hello, Avil. How's it going? Tengu. Hello, James. Very formal of you. Love from India. Oh, yeah, I love that. It's got to be late in India, right? Is it fairly late? Who do I think is going to get P1? We'll talk about that. We can talk about the predictions that you guys have kind of had. Hello there, Claude. How's it going? Shafir. Lovely day. It is actually a lovely day in Norwich. And I actually had some good news about the possible house move, which is taking 9 million years to complete. But how are we all doing? Yeah, 9 p.m. I thought it might be quite late in India, but we're here. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. You know what to do by now. Let me just grab this. I've reset a few things for the stream today. Finally had a day where I can sit down and shuffle some things around on the stream, so that should be good. But are we looking forward to Bahrain? I'm just watching an interview with Kimi Antonelli, the first driver to score points in all 3 of his opening Grand Prix since Lewis Hamilton. So fairly good company to be keeping there if you are Kimi Antonelli. Of course, going into a top 4 team is always going to help you out a little bit in that way, but still got to do it. Still got to deliver out on track. And Kimi Antonelli has indeed done that. And been pretty impressive so far this season. And hence, he has jumped into your guys' predictions. If you didn't see the predictions video, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to make sure the house move isn't done yet. I know. I know. I know. It is taking so long. It should have been done like March. March was the goal. Yeah. Started before Christmas, indeed. It is you don't have to tell me. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Soon. I keep saying that, but I actually do believe it now. McLaren dominant in qualifying should be. I think the thing is though, McLaren, even if they're dominant in qualifying, we've got 2 McLaren drivers that are very much in the mix. You guys predicted in the predictions video, Oscar Piastri would take the victory, Max Verstappen 3rd, and then Lando Norris in 2nd. So you're thinking McLarens are still going to be quick. Max Verstappen though, getting the jump over George Russell's been on the podium a couple of times so far this season. Obviously, Ferrari bringing an upgrade. Whether or not Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton would be able to get in there. Hamilton did win the sprint race in China. Let's not forget, like, that Ferrari does have pace in it sometimes when you can get it right into that window. Guys voted for Kimi Antonelli, Yuki Tsunoda as the surprise package. Kimi Antonelli was in the mix, though, for being the surprise package of the weekend. That should be a good surprise, by the way. So you guys sort of hoping that Yuki finally gets some points on the board for that 2nd Red Bull seat. It's getting a little bit silly, isn't it? The fact that we are getting into the 4th race of the season and that 2nd Red Bull seat has still not scored any points, where Max Verstappen is sitting 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. It's not looking great. Best team, McLaren, clearly. Struggle Jack doing seems a little bit harsh, but again, I think it shows the quality of the grid. And I was talking to Pondon. Is that his name? I don't know how you perfectly say that, but I was talking to Pondon, the Red Bull guy, about this. And he made a really good point that this is one of the best Formula One grids that we've seen in a very long time. I think he was saying he thinks it's the best Formula One grid since 2012, 2013, around that kind of era. And I sort of like scanned down it, and I was sort of partially partially like, yeah, actually, you make a really good point. Like, thinking back over the years since then, there isn't a clear driver that doesn't deserve to be there. Whereas you could definitely say that over the last few years, there's been drivers on the grid where you're like, what on earth are they doing here? They should not be in the mix in the same way that some of these drivers are. And you guys have voted for the flop team being the Steak Sauber team. I was going to try and defend them a little bit. The problem is I really like Gabriel Bortoletto and I really like Nico Hulkenberg. But just not happening for either of them. Hulkenberg getting 6 points on the board means that this season is technically better than last season already for the Steak Sauber team. But it does feel like they're also just going to slowly regress and be the 10th fastest team once again. I can't see that getting any better for them moving forwards. When it comes to the Drivers' Championship, as I mentioned before, Max Verstappen just a point behind Lando Norris, which is pretty mental considering we're all saying, well, McLaren have got the fastest car. The McLaren team was obviously well ahead of the rest. Max Verstappen 1 point behind Norris, even with a pretty tricky Chinese Grand Prix weekend, is very, very impressive. And I think just goes to show Max Verstappen, the quality that he has got. And then you look at the fact that, oh wait, Yuki Tsunoda has scored points. Was that in the RB though? Yeah, it was in the RB, wasn't it? I was going to say that's still that second Red Bull seat hasn't scored any. Yeah, it can't have been in the Red Bull because that would have been last time around. Yuki Tsunoda scored points, but in the RB. Do we count that? It doesn't count towards Red Bull's points, so I'm not going to count it. But Yuki Tsunoda, 3 points on the board, which does make the Constructors' Championship look a little bit weird, doesn't it? But Max Verstappen there with I was going to say a 61-point lead over his teammate, but I guess you could 58-point lead over his teammate. But still a pretty tough time for the Red Bull second driver. Hopefully Yuki can kind of bounce back. It hasn't been an amazing start to the weekend for him, I'm not going to lie. He hasn't been ridiculously quick in any of the free practice sessions or anything like that, but we'll see how it goes. Red Bull Racing supposed to have Verstappen Racing. I mean, I think they would love that. They really would love that. That screen looks great. Thank you, Sally. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Try my best. I mean, I made it look really, really nice. And then Red Bull threw an absolute spanner in the works, swapping Tsunoda for Lawson. And then I had to kind of rejig it a little bit. But it's getting there. I like the fact that Isaac Hadjar is also the second highest rated Red Bull driver right now. And he's the one driver that hasn't been in that Red Bull car throughout the season. So that's where we're at right now. Stressed about qualifying seems like essential now. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. The problem that we had in China and Japan was that the tracks had recently been relayed and resurfaced. So although they're usually pretty high-deg tracks, like China and Japan are, but especially Japan, is basically a guaranteed two-stop race. The fact that it was a one-stop was insane. Like, that was all down to the fact that I think Pirelli maybe got the tyres a little bit wrong. And I think the fact that the surface had been recently relayed kind of caught Pirelli and the teams out in the fact that the hard tyre was just able to go and go and go and never fall off of a cliff, which is unlike sort of the Suzuka circuit. I don't think that will be the case here. The track has not been relayed. They're still kind of using the Pirelli tyres similar to last year. I think we should finally see a two-stop race and actually see some drivers have to put in some strategy calls that isn't just let's go as long as possible on X tyre, which is all we've seen over the past sort of 2 Grand Prix. China was a little bit more exciting, I guess, because some of the drivers got it wrong in terms of the strategy. But apart from that, kind of went the way you'd expect it to. And then Japan was so boring. So boring. Wow. Statistically, the most boring race that there has ever been. Is it ever? I think, one change of position in the top 10, I think is like the worst in terms of the statistics. I know Tomo did a video on it, but I didn't get around to watching it yet. So I'm missing some information there. It's been a busy couple of days. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli are also catching the eye a little bit. The fact that Kimi Antonelli is only 15 points behind Russell after 3 races is pretty impressive. I'd like to sort of see how he gets on in this race, though. I feel like this is the first big test for the rookies, again, because of that tyre degradation. Like, I think, Antonelli's had a really solid start to the season. You could say the same for sort of Behrman in there, Hadjar as well. Like, even Bortoletto and Doohan haven't had that bad a start to the season. I know they're all the way down at the bottom of the driver's standings, but I think this will be the real test for those rookies on the new tyres. Formula One tyres are notoriously difficult to get used to. Like, we go back to Oscar Piastri's first season in Formula One, and he was really quick in that McLaren car, but I remember in Hungary in particular, he just couldn't get the performance out of the tyres and the longevity out of the tyres throughout the Hungarian Grand Prix to really make it work. Not the Hungarian Grand Prix where he won it the year before when he was still in his rookie season. Not to get those two confused, because talking about McLaren and Hungary does bring up some interesting memories. But I think it's the going back to that and seeing that Piastri, even when would that have been? 12, 13 rounds into the season, was still really struggling to get to grips with how these tyres come together throughout an entire race distance. That would be a very, very tricky one in terms of, I think, the rookies adapting to that. Big fan of my explainer content. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Massively appreciate it. I'm going to try some new stuff, actually. I was hoping to try some new stuff this season. Again, it all falls back on the house move. I was sort of putting things together, trying some new stuff, and then we're still here. Like, the background has not yet changed. So once the background has changed, you will see some very different stuff and also more stuff. I feel like I have been a little bit lax in the uploads in recent weeks, if I'm honest, like compared to what I'd like to be able to do. But it's just, yeah, we're getting there. We're slowly getting there. Sadly, like Monaco, yeah, Antonio, you're spot on. It was so sort of, Saturday was brilliant. Like, that Max Verstappen lap was insane. But then I would have liked to have seen the McLarens at least be able to have a go. But Andrea Stella talked about this in the fact that they kind of did the rough numbers on it, and you needed an 8/10 advantage to get close enough to make an overtake. 8/10. That just doesn't happen. Like, it just is almost impossible to come across, and that's why nobody was able to make overtakes, because everyone was on the same kind of tires at the same kind of time, and therefore nobody had a second a lap on the person in front of them. That was just obscene amount of stuff. Currently stuck on the freeway with a flat tire. Ouch. Touch wood, I've never had that. I've had tires blow and had to reset. Do you have a spare? That's the thing. Do you have a spare? Thank you for subscribing. Cautious Euphonium. Appreciate that. I feel like I'm saying that right. I might be saying it wrong, but appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Trying to get to 120,000 subscribers before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. And we're doing pretty well, actually, because we had a short just pop off for no reason whatsoever. I also wasn't there to sort of deal with it popping off because I was away at the beginning of the week. So, mental. Should take out Yuki's picture from the team standings. Seems a little bit harsh. We can have a look, though. Yeah, it does feels a little bit weird to have two drivers on there, but the 61 points from Red Bull coming from just one side of the garage there. I feel a bit bad for Ferrari as well, because it's not the driver's fault that they got disqualified from China, and I feel like that is going to plague them a little bit for the next few races, because it puts them on like half the points of Red Bull, and that's insane. Isn't it? Like, it should be so much closer in terms of that top four. McLaren running away with it, and we were hoping for much more of a battle in the constructors, but it does just feel like Ferrari have shot themselves in the foot. Mercedes aren't quite there yet. You know, maybe they evolve over the course of the season, and Red Bull are so one-sided that he's really struggling, or whoever is in that second seat is really struggling to put points on the board. Then it gets a little bit more exciting again. Williams, 19 points. Alex Albon has started the season on electric form. Haas then on 15 points. Aston Martin on 10. That's a one-sided affair, and not the one side that you would imagine. Lance Stroll has started the season very, very well. Very, very well, which is not something I thought I'd hear myself say. Racing Bulls on the 7 points behind. Stake Sauber, 6 points, and Alpine, the only team yet to score points so far this season. So again, I think we're going to have all the teams get on the board, which is nice to see after we have had seasons before where we've had 1, 2 teams not even get on the board. So hopefully we'll get Alpine on the board at some point soon. It feels like Pierre Gasly won't go an entire season without scoring any points. So we should be there. Bunch of unfortunate circumstances aligning at the right time. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. I feel like the wet weather in Australia actually meant that the race was a little bit sort of, it was just not quite where we wanted it to be. We ended up sort of having safety cars and at the wrong times, for them to really be, I was going to say effective, but the wrong times for them to make any kind of difference to the strategies that people were on. And then obviously the last 2 races, yeah, the tires have just been able to completely deal with the new surfaces that have been put down, and therefore we didn't have any kind of strategy. It was just put on the tires, go for as long as you can. Once the first couple of people start pitting, pit at the same time and just go from there. How long until quali? About 7 minutes. 7 minutes until qualifying. Just realized 2 rookies in RB. Lawson's a bit of a weird one. For some reason, he's not technically a rookie by Formula One standards. I mean, none of them are now. So to be a rookie, you have to have taken part in 2 or less Grand Prix. So now nobody. Unless Hadjar, because it was on the formation lap that he crashed out, does that not count towards him? So Isaac Hadjar may technically still be a rookie, depending on how that works, but he was entered into it and was on the formation lap. It would be a bit weird one if he isn't. At least he'll definitely not be a rookie by the end of this weekend, unless he does the same thing again and doesn't take part in any of the racing laps. But yeah, to be a rookie, you have to have done 2 or less Grand Prix. So I guess Liam Lawson, having done 11 before this season even started, technically wasn't a rookie, but he still feels like it. It's his first full-time Formula One contract, isn't it? So we'll have to wait and see. Hello from South Africa. Hello, are you looking forward to a possible South African Grand Prix? Why they stopped coming to South Africa? So they used to race here, but I never went in too deep. I mean, Formula One always swaps around here, there, and everywhere. Like, we had a French Grand Prix for a very long time, and that's now going to go. Zandvoort is going to be dropped off the calendar, I think, at the end of 20... Is it the end of this year? Yeah, it might be the end of this year, I think. That we have the Zandvoort Grand Prix dropping off the calendar. So, kind of twos and fro's. But South Africa might be back on the calendar again. It's been sort of talked about a lot more, isn't it? The South African Grand Prix. I saw a couple of people do videos on it this week. So I think, never say never when it comes to your city hosting a Formula One race, because you never know where Formula One might be, and it might just align itself. We've had Malaysia on the calendar, we've had India on the calendar, and then disappear and possibly come back. So I'm in China using a VPN right now. The Chinese Grand Prix was so disappointing. Were you in China for the Chinese Grand Prix? That's the thing. Need to see a South African Grand Prix? I would like an African race. I think, Lewis Hamilton has made that point a few times, in that if it's supposed to be a global sport and representing all corners of the globe, we go to Australia, we go to Asia in quite a few different ways. Like, we go to sort of East Asia with Japan. We still go to sort of South Asia. I don't know is Abu Dhabi technically South Asia, Western Asia, but we've got Bahrain, we've got Abu Dhabi, we've got that kind of area covered now. Saudi Arabia in that area as well. Then we've got Europe, big chunk of Europe in the middle of the season. But even North America, we've got Canada covered. We go through America 3 times with Vegas and Miami. We go down to South America with Brazil. It would be nice if there was an African race in the mix. You know what I mean? And South Africa is, well, as far down Africa as you can go. So it would make sense. It would kind of really globalize Formula One, I guess. But at the same time, I imagine the only thing that would be against that is the trying to get everything to and from South Africa. This is not just getting a racetrack that works, it's getting everything to that racetrack. And then allowing the racers and the hundreds of thousands of people that also go along with all of the chaos of Formula One to be able to come in, do their jobs, access everything. But no, I'd absolutely love a South African Grand Prix. I think that would be a really, really cool addition to the calendar. And should be in the works, but we'll have to wait and see if it kind of comes fully true in the future. We are headed towards the start of qualifying. I am just going to get a couple of things loaded up. Let's see if we can get the quali timings board all ready to go. Here we go. Let's see if I can get the race control on there as well. Bada bing, bada boom. There we go. Can everyone see that? Is that all right? Are we all in? What number race is Monaco? Is it 7? Is it after Miami? Or is it 8? I know Spain is the 9th round of the season, but it's in and around there. Because there's Canada. I think Canada might be 8. What app is this? This is Multiviewer, which you can download. You do have to have F1 TV, which I think in the UK is like, I want to say like £20 a year for F1 TV. I mean, it auto pays for me. I watch the races so often that it's just well worth me having. Like, even if you could only watch historical races. But let's have a little look then. Some driver messages coming through on the radio already. And just a few of them. Lance Stroll understeer at turn 80. Not sure that. It's probably turn 8 and turn 9. I really find this track like such a fun one to drive. I went to an event recently, which I can talk about in a bit more detail in a few weeks, but went to an event and we got to sort of play around on some sims, and I just had to have a go at Bahrain. It's one of those tracks that really does do it. Can I zoom in on the comms? Too small to see anything. Is it? That's frustrating. What can I do? I don't know if I can zoom in on it. I can make it smaller and then maybe zoom in on it. I'll have a think about it in a moment. But we'll get set up for qualifying first and foremost. What's my favorite track? It's on the wall. Guess the track. Hulkenberg P1, max pole position. I think it's in the McLaren's hands again. You know, it should be, if you're a gambling man, should be a Norris or Piastri, just considering how quick they've been throughout the practice sessions. And a lot of the drivers from the other teams are sort of saying, looking pretty good if you're a McLaren fan right now. So, should hopefully is there. Ollie P1. That would be a shock. That would be a shock. Liam Lawson there in the sister Red Bull team. Said after the Grand Prix in Japan that he was a bit frustrated that he couldn't sort of do anything with it. Couldn't move forwards, but then nobody could. But his first time in that second Red Bull team of the season. Isaac Hadjar picking up points, though, was the other thing. Sonoda front row. Poor Yuki makes it out of Q1. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a look at Yuki Tsunoda, isn't it? As we start to get underway here for the first qualifying session of this. Got 17 minutes on the board. And Lance Stroll is going to be the first driver to set a fast lap here. Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso also making their way out. But a few drivers just sort of waiting and giving themselves a bit more space. Let me just shuffle that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Ooh, Haas. They're talking about getting at least one of those two cars in the top 10. That's big talk from Haas. Nico Hülkenberg, of course, was the sort of star man for the Haas team last year. Now down in the Stake Sauber car. Here we are then. Hülkenberg also getting us a lap in. Still none of the other drivers coming along. Just the three. Three green cars on the circuit. Stroll, Hülkenberg and Alonso. And yeah, they're making a good point. We don't really want to see the tracks resurfaced if it's going to cause us to have races like we did the last couple of times around. So Bahrain sticking with its rough surface. Fernando Alonso showing some sparks as he goes down through turn 9 and turn 10. Nico Hülkenberg doing the same, to be honest. Getting those. It's a really tricky corner. That turn 9, turn 10, I feel like could be a real defining couple of corners when it comes to qualifying. Just absolutely nailing that could be the difference. That middle sector, so technical compared to sort of sector 1 and sector 3, where you can go for those lunging overtakes. Fernando Alonso going quickest of anybody so far. Nico Hülkenberg actually purple in the middle sector. Then Alonso takes it off of him. Lance Stroll sets the standard at 133.5. Nico Hülkenberg into the 132s. A little bit better from him. Alonso also then. Oh. And I think Lance Stroll's lap time has just been deleted. Turn 13 is unfortunately where it's all gone wrong for Lance Stroll in that lap. So just Alonso and Hülkenberg with laps on the board. We are starting to see the other drivers arriving though. Verstappen and Tsunoda have come out for the Red Bull setup. Esteban Ocon is actually out of his Haas car. They're changing the seat inside of his Haas at the moment. So Frenchman needs to get a little bit of a wiggle on if he's going to get a lap time on the board. Otherwise, it's going to be all Ollie Behrman when it comes to the likelihood of Haas getting through. Max Verstappen, though, preparing himself. Can he do it again? Did it in Japan. Nabbed pole position when we weren't expecting him to be able to do so. Stunning lap in Suzuka. What can Max Verstappen do here? Very nicely done from Verstappen. Overtakes Lewis Hamilton coming out of the pits. Then is going to be chasing down Alex Albon, who's ahead of him. Yuki Tsunoda is starting his flying lap as well. Tsunoda under pressure to get out of Q1 once again. Did manage to get out of Q1 last time around, but then Q2, the lap time started to fall and couldn't quite get himself into that Q3 spot. That's what he's going to need to do if he's going to prove that he can be in that second Red Bull seat for more than 2 races, as Liam Lawson got. Feel like Yuki Tsunoda will get the benefit of the doubt for a little bit longer, but you never know. Thank you for subscribing. A couple of subscribers coming through there. Appreciate that. If you could hit that subscribe button, trying to get to 120k. Be amazing. Max Verstappen, quickest in the first sector of anybody, as you'd expect, coming around before some of the other top teams. Still not ridiculously ahead of Fernando Alonso's time, though. Verstappen just getting a banker lap in. Yuki Tsunoda goes, and a big lockup from Max Verstappen. He goes wide at the final couple of corners, and he's going to dart straight back into the pits, I'd imagine. It's a mistake from Max Verstappen there at the final couple of corners. Yuki Tsunoda, though, trying not to do the same thing. And Tsunoda comes across the line to top the timing sheets for now. It's a 132.0 from Yuki Tsunoda. Pierre Gasly comes across the line. Goes second fastest, just a 10th off. Max Verstappen would have been there had it not been for the mistake. Jack Doohan, the first driver into the 131s with a 131.9. Couple attempts ahead of his teammate. Here's the replay, though, of Max Verstappen. Just goes a little bit deep. And on the radio, Max is saying that there is something really wrong with the car, which is not what you want to hear. It wasn't even as he was turning into the corner. It literally just smoked from the tyres as soon as he got onto the brakes. A little bit of a weird one. We'll keep an eye on Max Verstappen. Needs to do it once again. He's got 10 minutes to get himself back out and get a couple of laps in. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc out for the Ferraris. Hamilton going fairly swiftly, but Leclerc actually quickest of anybody through the first sector, just behind his teammate, trying to make his way through the crowd as Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton coming around the final couple of corners now. And George Russell just behind him. George Russell, I think, starting his flying lap and getting a little bit of a boost from his old teammate, Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton can only go second quickest overall, though. Slots in just behind Jack Doohan. Yuki Tsunoda's lap time was deleted for turn 15 infringements. That was both of the Red Bulls with no respective times set now. Leclerc comes across the line and goes to the top of the timing sheets. Leclerc with a 131.4 as they tick over to the 9 seconds on the clock. Lando Norris has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector. Oscar Piastri, though, is going to be the first McLaren across the line and the first McLaren to go to the top of the timing sheet. So 131.3. We're starting to see the times tumble. Piastri was into the 130s earlier on. Lando Norris can't do that, but is into the 131.1. So it's just a 10th off the 130 times and goes to the top of the timing sheets for now. So it's both of the McLarens at the top as we were expecting. Leclerc and Doohan, the two behind at the moment. And here we are then with Kimi Antonelli coming down towards the final couple of corners in that Mercedes car. Again, scored points on all 3 races so far in his debut season and is up into the point scoring places for now. If he can start and finish in 4th place tomorrow, again, that would be another pretty solid race from him. He's ahead of George Russell, who slots into 6th place just behind. Fernando Alonso stays 5th fastest, 8/10 off of it, though, and it's a big gap between the top 3 and the rest of the field. Lando Norris, 3/10 ahead of Charles Leclerc, but nearly 8/10 ahead of Kimi Antonelli, is 8/10 ahead of Fernando Alonso. Just showing that gap. Is a fairly long lap around here, you could argue, 1:30. So there is a lot of time for the McLarens to escape away from the rest. Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg, the 2 drivers in that bottom 5 that have been able to set lap times so far. Verstappen, Ocon and Tsunoda, the 3 drivers yet to set representative lap times. Hülkenberg is looking to improve, though, and Ocon is on a fast lap. Verstappen and Tsunoda both in the pits, though, so it's going to be a little bit of pressure on the 2 Red Bull drivers to deliver. We saw a small mistake in Suzuka cost Yuki Tsunoda pretty heavily, but Esteban Ocon is going to jump up the timing sheets to 9th. That puts Isaac Hadjar down in 16th place. So Stroll, Hadjar, here comes Hülkenberg to get himself out of that bottom 5 and into 10th. So Lance Stroll drops into the bottom 5. Ollie Behrman and Alex Albon will be the 2 drivers that need to improve the most, especially as you'd imagine, well, definitely Verstappen and possibly a Tsunoda should make their way through into the second part of qualifying. Just over 6 minutes to go in this one as it stands. Lando Norris, the quickest of the cars out there. Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc will start in the podium places if qualifying were to end like this. Of course, we are just looking for that bottom 5, though. So it's Stroll, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Verstappen, and Tsunoda that need to improve. Hello, Josh, mate. How's it going? Just seeing your name pop up. Where are the Red Bulls? They are in the garages at the moment. Max Verstappen made a... Well, it looked like a mistake, but then also felt like something went a little bit awry with that Red Bull car down in towards the final couple of corners. That forced him very wide and ruined his lap, so he just came straight back into the pits. Yuki Tsunoda did finish his flying lap, but was given a track limits infringement for turn 15, so Tsunoda ended up having to come back into the pits as it was as well. Still 5 minutes to go, though, in this first qualifying session, and 5 drivers will be dropped. Just have to wait and see which of the 20 drivers out there it will be. Stroll, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Verstappen, and Tsunoda as it stands. If there was a red flag or something a bit inconvenient, we could see both of the Red Bulls drop out of it here with no banker lap for either of them. But unlikely, especially considering how consistent Max Verstappen has been over the last 5 or 6 years in Formula One. Let's see then, Lance Stroll is just coming out of the pits. We are now getting a big queue at the end of the pit lane. Isaac Hadjar is next in that queue. Iwasa here with the Racing Bulls team. A lot of drivers actually being replaced during free practice 1 this weekend. Be interesting to see how that affects them. It's a good weekend to get those free practices in, though, for those rookies, because you have to do at least 2 over the course of the season. And Bahrain is a track that the majority of the drivers know incredibly well, having done thousands of laps here in testing. Partho, I love your vids and shorts. Thank you so much. And thank you for subscribing, LP. We're getting very close to that elusive 120,000 subscribers. As we now are getting into the heated bit of Q1. Carlos Sainz with a fan in the crowd for the Williams team. Currently sitting 11th place and through at the moment. But I can see the times starting to fall a little bit here. Ollie Behrman. I do enjoy this. Under the lights in Bahrain, the visor's clear. You can see the whites of the driver's eyes. And Behrman is going to start another flying lap inside of his Haas. Currently sitting right on the bubble is Ollie Behrman. You'd expect he's going to need to improve fairly substantially, actually, if he's going to get through into Q2. Has scored some points so far this year. Ollie Behrman looked a lot more comfortable in that upgraded Haas. Can they do it again and get some more points on the board in the midfield battle with Williams? That is starting to emerge. Is improving through that first sector. Ollie Behrman still a 10th or so of Lando Norris's time, but I don't think he's going to have to be worried about the McLarens. It is getting into that sort of top 10 mix for now. Just putting yourself safe enough, especially with Stroll, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Verstappen, and Tsunoda, the 5 in the bottom there. Who do I think is the best driver? Best right now. Hard to look past Max Verstappen. Not my favourite, but the best. On form right now. Max Verstappen just sitting there, watching, waiting. Is out on track, actually. Max Verstappen just coming through towards the final sector. You can see him coming towards turn 11 on your screens right now. Following behind Oscar Piastri in the McLaren car. So we'll see how he gets on. Ollie Behrman, though, completing his lap. Does improve, but only up into 13th. Ollie Behrman, so going to be right on the fringes of what's sort of good enough to get you through. Gabriel Bortoleto improves to 12th, and Behrman then slots in to 14th. It's not looking good for Ollie Behrman fans out there, unfortunately. Lance Stroll comes across the line to go 14th fastest and get himself out of the bottom 5 for now. That drops Liam Lawson into there. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, and Hadjar with a stunning lap into the 131.5s. Jumps up to 5th place in that RB. Starting to look very, very comfortable indeed, Isaac Hadjar, after a torrid first weekend in Australia. Now looking sublime, has to be said, in that sister Red Bull car. Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda are both on their flying laps now, though. Ollie Behrman has dropped into the bottom 5, which means he'll be out. Liam Lawson and Alex Albon need to improve. You'd also imagine Lance Stroll and Gabriel Bortoleto are going to be dropped into that bottom 5 as the Red Bulls continue. Yuki Tsunoda is just 0.09 of a second off Lando Norris's first sector time. It's an improvement in the first sector from both Verstappen and Tsunoda. Verstappen now coming down towards the end of the second sector. What kind of lap time is it through that middle part of the track from Verstappen? Can he improve once again? Lewis Hamilton takes the checkered flag and goes through second fastest. Liam Lawson has got himself out of that bottom 5, putting Lance Stroll in there, by the way. But it's all eyes on Verstappen and Tsunoda. Verstappen coming around towards the final bend. Can he get himself through? Surely Max Verstappen won't drop at the first hurdle. And it's going to be comfortably into the top 3. Max Verstappen goes 3rd and puts Gabriel Bortoleto out. And Yuki Tsunoda, here's your tagline. Tsunoda, if he gets across the line, will put Liam Lawson out of this first qualifying session. And does. Tsunoda demotes Lawson to 16th place, and Lawson is going to be out in the first qualifying session. Alex Albon then, is he going to be able to sneak his way through? Just Alex Albon into 14th place. Fernando Alonso actually jumps ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda in 14th. And Nico Hulkenberg, is going to nab it. Hulkenberg just steals 15th place from Alex Albon. So incredibly close. Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Stroll, and Behrman then will be our bottom 5. Slightly poetic that it was Yuki Tsunoda who was just quick enough to knock out Liam Lawson, but then a little bit more of a shuffle at the end there. Albon and Hulkenberg also fighting for that final place, and Hulkenberg just sneaking it at the end. I didn't realize Hulkenberg was the final car across the line, actually. I thought he was a little bit earlier in the queue, but he got there and into the second part of qualifying. Who's my favourite? I am a McLaren fan, despite the AlphaTauri hoodie. I do quite like the second Red Bull team. But Alex Albon will be very frustrated with that. It was a poor middle sector. Oh. And Albon not very happy on the radio either, unfortunately. Just couldn't get to grips with it. And Albon not good enough this time around. Doohan being P5. Yeah, Jack Doohan. Stunning lap from him. Piastri will be maybe a little bit put out that he wasn't just behind Lando Norris, but it's all about just getting through that first qualifying session for the guys towards the top end of the grid. Alex Albon, the most frustrated in 16th place. Keep an eye on Yuki Tsunoda. Was only good enough for 14th. Again, Isaac Hadjar, the second quickest Red Bull car out on track this time around. So maybe a French teammate for Max Verstappen some point soon. Wouldn't put it past Red Bull to make that kind of wilder change, but we'll have to wait and see. He likes Norris because he's a Brit. Yes and no. More because he's a McLaren driver. Am I watching it live or just watching the timing board? I am watching it live. Just on another screen that you cannot see. Please convince my mum to buy me F125. I mean, if you use my code, I don't know if I can say this on the stream because I haven't said that this stream is sponsored by EA. There's a possibility that you can get a discount if you look for a said code on maybe the posts tab. And then you can get yourself a discount and then, you know, you're halfway there. But Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri, Doohan, Antonelli, Leclerc, Gasly, Russell, and Hadjar were the top 10. Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda, and Nico Hulkenberg will be the 5 drivers that need to improve if they want to make their way through to the final part of qualifying. Track is now clear, and we're all set up for Q2 to get underway. Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Stroll, and Behrman will not be joining us for it. Alex Albon, the closest 4 thousandths of a second, and he'll be so annoyed because he lost a couple of tenths in that middle part of the lap. So it could have easily been through had there not been that tiny little, sort of, I was going to say error, but it was more just a wobble from Alex Albon. Liam Lawson out once again. The slowest of the Red Bulls. And Lawson just having a horrible start to the year, whichever car you put him in. Bortoletto frustrated. Lance Stroll agonizingly 19th. Would not have expected to be in there, especially after the solid start to the season that Stroll has had, but maybe it was just a bright light that shined too bright for too long. And Ollie Behrman last overall. Ferrari upgrades working. Well, we'll start to see. The problem is with Q1, a lot of the top teams are sort of taking it not easy, but they're not putting 100% of the effort that they need to in, which sounds insane, right? Because they're still traveling at hundreds of miles an hour, but they're not pushing it to the absolute limits. And Ollie Behrman, there it was, turn 8, miles away. from the apex there. Ollie Behrman just too deep at turn 8, and that was where he lost all of that time and was going to be nowhere close to getting through. Still only 3/10 off Alex Albon's time in 16th, but lost probably more than that. Don't worry, guys. I can ban people if required. When's Q2 starting? In a sort of a minute or so. Got a green light at the end of the pit lane. Pit exit is now open. We are underway. And we're just waiting for cars to come out on track is the thing. Why is Hadjar over Sainz even at the same time? Hadjar will have set that time first, which seems like an insane way to kind of do it, but I suppose you've got to pick a way. You might remember we saw that last year in Canada where George Russell and Max Verstappen set the exact same pole position time. So the driver that gets that pole position time first gets to keep the position ahead of the other driver, which happens probably more than you'd think in Formula One, considering we do also measure the lap times down to the 1,000th of a second. The likelihood of two drivers putting in the same lap time seems ridiculous, but it does happen quite a bit. Not necessarily for pole, but just sort of throughout qualifying and throughout the races as well. But here we are then. We're starting to see some drivers come out on track. It's Yuki Tsunoda first in the queue. Nico Hulkenberg coming out just behind. Fernando Alonso coming out of the Aston Martin garage on our screens. And George Russell being told to build a little bit of a gap to Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli just ahead of his teammate. They'll be trying to not get in each other's way, not cause too much dirty air. There was also that time that 3 drivers got the same pole time. That is very true. It happens more than you think, like drivers getting the same lap time. Which, as I say, is mental. Like, it is insane. The fact that they are to the 1,000th of a second identical. But thank you for subscribing to the channel. I'll do a little, just as we're getting Yuki Tsunoda coming around the final sector. If you could hit that like button, it really does help out the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel as well, trying to get 120,000 subscribers. And if you want to become a member, there are already 11 members on the channel. Trying to get up to 30 members on the channel before the end of the season if we can. Gonna try and give a little push for that. You do get access to members only content, lots of members only videos coming up as well, and a members only post race show that you can be part of and is live. So we just sort of have a little chat after the Grand Prix checkered flag drops and talk through the main ups and downs of the Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda is, though, going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time here in this second part of qualifying. The lap times before become obsolete. 15 drivers have to do it all over again. Let's see where Tsunoda can slot in. Yellow flag. Oh, in that first part of the... Oh, and that is Esteban Ocon has gone wide. And red flag might be waved fairly soon because that is... There you go. There is the red flag. Because double waved yellows was not looking like enough because Esteban Ocon has buried his Haas car into turn 3 there. And that is going to be the end of Esteban Ocon's afternoon and a big amount of damage that needs to be repaired. Ooh, that is very high speed. We haven't seen the replay of it yet, but you can just see the amount of damage to the rear end of that Haas car. He is definitely spun into the gravel and completely lost that car. Been supporting since Spain 23. That is very impressive. Is before the channel was anywhere near what it is now. Unfortunate qualifying for Haas. Yeah, it was. I was hoping one of the Haas's would kind of get through to Q3. That was what they were saying before qualifying got underway, but Behrman, the mistake down in towards turn 8, and now Esteban Ocon. Looks like possibly a mistake through turn 2 or getting on the power through turn 3. Let's have a look. Oh, just gets onto the... Yeah. Gets onto the... outside of turn 2. And ouch. There's all I can say. Big slap of understeer. And spins that Haas car around. And actually the rear end of the car is what meets the barriers first. Then spins once more and also collects the front wing as well. So Esteban Ocon is out of the Haas car. Seems okay, just getting into the medical vehicle now. But that is going to be a little bit of a job for the guys and marshals to deal with. Because, yeah, it's not on its wheels anymore. And therefore, going to need a crane to get that out. Lewis Hamilton is still out on track, so they can't get a crane to it as of yet. George Russell just being rolled back in. And did Yuki Tsunoda finish his lap? Don't think so, no. So no lap times were completed in that first 4 minutes of the second qualifying session. And everyone is going to be in a little bit of a rush to get out once again. Isaac Hadjar inside of the RB garage, taking his gloves off. Get a little bit cooling around your hands, I suppose. But red flag at 11 minutes and 1 second on the clock. Esteban Ocon's car just being removed from the gravel there at turn 3. So Esteban Ocon, the reason we're just waiting. Who is the underdogs this season? That is a good question. Maybe looking at the constructor standards at the minute, Alpine. Wasn't expecting them to be as far down as they are, so I expect them to kind of come back as the season progresses. Haas, though. Haas are always underdogs. They are the smallest team on the grid. They can never not be underdogs, really. They're just underdogs by the fact that they have the smallest budget and the smallest team. Ocon's car has been picked up, though. The crane is now on the track. And a big shunt. Hello, Sarah. Just got out of an audition. What's going on? Esteban Ocon has just lost it. On the exit of turn 2, entering turn 3, just got all over the curbs. The rear end of that car just stepped out. And once he'd spun around, there was nothing he could really do apart from collect his car into the barriers. So, timed it quite nicely, actually. Red flag at the moment. Haven't seen any lap times for Q2. Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Stroll and Behrman, the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q1. And 11 minutes on the clock, so it's going to be a little bit of a rush, especially if the teams still want to try and get 2 lap times in. We might, though, just see this become a little bit of a 1-lap shootout for a lot of the cars on the grid. And Ocon, big shunt. And Hulkenberg saying he nearly lost it on the exit of turn 2 as well. So maybe a little bit slippery. And if you haven't quite got the tyres absolutely spot on as you start your lap, maybe stepping out into them. What happens if the red flag lasts for 11 minutes and no driver sets the time? So red flag, the timer actually gets paused. So that's why it's stopped at 11 minutes dead. So when it's a red flag during qualifying, they completely and utterly pause the time. So doesn't matter how long the wait is, there will always still be 11 minutes left. And we're just getting confirmation that the estimated time of Q2 resuming is 17:37 local time. So just 2 minutes away from now. And the team's looking like that's going to be the case because Nico Hülkenberg has already got the tyre blankets coming off the top of his tyres and they're getting ready to go. Track is clear. Green flags are waved. And we're going to see the drivers back out on track already. A little bit of a queue, I'd imagine, going to be forming inside of the pit lane. Ooh. And the medical car hasn't actually been able to get back to the end of the pit lane. I suppose a little bit of a weird one. Pierre Gasly looks good. Alpine are looking pretty decent. Jack Doohan was 5th fastest in Q1. Very, very quick lap from Jack. But the track is now clear, meaning that the cars were allowed to come out into the pit lane, and we do now have a bit of a queue in the pit lane, as there's about 30 seconds or so before we get underway. DRS enabled once more. Hamilton's Ferrari preparing. It's been a little bit of a mixed start to his Ferrari career, hasn't it, for Lewis Hamilton? Some ups and downs. There's been some disqualifications, some muddled strategies, but also a sprint victory. And first bit of silverware in red added to, well, the plethora of silverware that he already had. But that is Esteban Ocon's car then. Removed from turn 3 fully. Green lights and green flags shown. Just under 11 minutes for everybody to get a lap time in. We have got the 2 Mercedes cars coming out already. Yuki Tsunoda still in the Red Bull garage. So Red Bull deciding not to join in the chaos of the pit lane queue that is currently going on. Just as you said that, Charles Leclerc is being shown, just waiting in the pit lane for Ferrari. It's going to be a little bit weird because everyone is going to try and get in a lap time as soon as possible. Unless Yuki Tsunoda is maybe thinking he only wants to get 1 lap time in. You could just about, I think most teams are going to try and just about get 2 lap times in. It's about a 2-minute out lap. So 2 minutes out, 2 minutes in, and a 1:30 30-ish lap time to get around. What's that? 5.5 minutes. So it's gonna be pretty tight if you want to do 2 laps, but doable if you do maybe a little bit quicker an in and out lap than 2 minutes. Who's my favorite driver right now? I mean, probably Lando. It has to be, doesn't he? He's just been at McLaren that a little bit longer. I do like Sainz. I like Piastri. I like a lot of the grid, to be honest with you. Got a Gasly helmet just behind me. I don't know if you can see it. Slightly off screen, I think. But Antonelli then is going to actually get us underway with some lap times. We've waited a good chunk of time now. 6 minutes of Q2 has expired, plus the red flag stop for Esteban Ocon's crash at turn 3. That does mean Ocon is almost guaranteed to drop out as long as 10 drivers can get lap times in. We're seeing Antonelli now running through that first sector. Let's see what kind of lap time he puts on the board to represent. Nico Hülkenberg is also starting a flying lap. We're seeing Sainz and Hadjar coming along as well. Pit lane incident involving Antonelli and Russell has been noted. It's failing to stay in the garage before the resumption time announced. Ooh, that's interesting. So Antonelli and Russell, well, the Mercedes pair, supposedly getting out into the pit lane before they should have been allowed to. We'll see what happens to those two. Antonelli, though, being outdone by Russell in the first sector. The two Mercedes cars are going to be the first to set flying lap times. Norris and Piastri have got an eye on as they're just coming down towards it as well. Max Verstappen actually between the two McLarens. Hamilton has just started his first flying lap as Kimi Antonelli is going to overtake Charles Leclerc as he finishes his. Comes across the line with a 131.1. Then George Russell, actually slower than his teammate. A 131.4 for George Russell slots into second place for now. Isaac Hadjar, though, not looking like he's going to trouble the top two at the moment with his lap time. Lando Norris hasn't gone quicker in the first sector than anybody else. It's just a green first sector, but a purple second sector for Lando Norris. Is then making it look like he's going to jump to the top of the timing sheets. But Piastri, his teammate behind, has just gone purple in the first sector as well. Yuki Tsunoda still in the pit lane. Not sure if there's a little problem for Yuki or whether he's just waiting and watching. Max Verstappen actually peels into the pits without setting a lap time, deciding against it. Oscar Piastri has gone fastest in the first and second sectors and is going to go to the top of the timing sheets, and it's a 130.4 from Piastri. Charles Leclerc abandons his lap. Oh no, sorry, that's Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton has abandoned his lap and popped in to the pit lane. Here comes Charles Leclerc then round the final couple of corners. Jack Doohan also running around behind him. Leclerc can only go third fastest and is 0.6 off Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. If that's not a statement by the McLaren team, I don't know what is. That is a sublimely quick first couple of laps from the McLaren duo. Nobody else anywhere close. Antonelli fourth fastest. Carlos Sainz nearly 9/10 adrift, and he's fifth fastest right now. Hamilton, Verstappen, Hadjar, Alonso, and Tsunoda yet to set lap times. And it does feel like we might have one of the big boys fall away here. Love my background. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's going to change soon. Moving house. Esteban Ocon, of course, is going to drop out in that bottom five guaranteed. It's who are going to be the four drivers to join them. I feel like we could see one of the big boys drop out here. Both of the McLarens look fairly comfortable, but both Ferraris, both Mercedes, and both Red Bulls are going to be under pressure. Oscar is just better than Lando. In what way? If I could interject and ask everybody to hit that like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. It really does help out the channel. Really enjoy, obviously, getting to do these with you. Hitting that like button just means I can do it more often. Is Singapore staying in the new house? We'll have to see. I haven't looked at how and where and when we're going to be able to slot everything in. I hope so. I feel like the shelving unit's probably going to get replaced. Buy some nicer shelves, you know what I mean? Rather than just sort of the cheapest IKEA ones that I could find. Where is the like button? It looks like a little thumbs up. It's sort of down below. Charles Leclerc then. New tyres onto the Ferrari. 6/10 off the two papaya cars, though. Can I show the time left? It's literally right there. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. George Russell, 7th fastest. A little bit of pressure on George to improve here. Again, I just got a little bit of a feeling that we might see one of the big boys fall away. So I imagine most people's money on Tsunoda being that one. Down in 15th. No respective lap time set as of yet, though. Everyone from Hamilton backwards is running it very, very fine indeed. George Russell is just starting another fast lap. Do I think Jack's 7 race contract is fair? I can understand why Alpine have done it, if I'm honest. You know, when you're in that kind of midfieldy pack, unfortunately, money does talk pretty substantially. You know, we've seen Williams have drivers like Latifi and yeah, we've seen Williams have drivers like Latifi. We've seen Haas have drivers like Mazepin, because you do just need the money to support your team sometimes when you're in that kind of midfield plethora. You wouldn't imagine that would be the same for Alpine, considering they've got Renault backing them, but money talks when it comes to Formula One, unfortunately. George Russell is actually going slower than he was previously. Oh, no, sorry, going slower than Oscar Piastri. I thought he was just going slower than his own time, but no, he is green through those first couple of sectors is George Russell. So will improve. Oscar Piastri goes to the top of the timing sheets. And Russell goes just ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli, though, slotting into 4th place. Now a couple attempts off the two papaya cars is a little bit better of a look than everybody else was doing. Tsunoda only 6th fastest, 7/10 off the pace. Here comes Hamilton then. Can Hamilton improve? Yes, Hamilton goes 5th ahead of Charles Leclerc, who is on an out lap right now. Isaac Hadjar. Pierre Gasly has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector. That purple ring around the 10th place Pierre Gasly at the moment. Here comes Isaac Hadjar. Gets up into the top 10 in P8. But you'd imagine Gasly is going to sneak his Alpine into that top 10. And does. It's a stunning lap. Superb from Pierre Gasly to go P3 and certainly through to Q3. Here comes Max Verstappen then. You would assume is going to make it. It's only 7th fastest from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Leclerc and Tsunoda, 2 behind. Isaac Hadjar, now the driver most under pressure. Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg, all on laps at the moment. Pierre Gasly, absolutely stunning. Here comes Alonso. It is not anywhere close. 6/10 off Isaac Hadjar's 10th place time. Carlos Sainz, though, is going a bit quicker. Can he get himself into the top 10? Yes, fairly comfortably. 6th place for Carlos Sainz. And out-qualifies a considerable chunk of the cars you wouldn't expect. Here comes Hülkenberg then. Can Hülkenberg get his Steak Sauber into the top 10? Doesn't look like he's going to, and doesn't. He stays 13th fastest and takes the checkered flag. So Hülkenberg, here comes Jack Doohan. Oh, 17 thousandths of a second off Yuki Tsunoda's time. Charles Leclerc is already safe in 9th place, and Isaac Hadjar is not on a lap time. So Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen can breathe a sigh of relief. Both of the Red Bulls just sneaking through there. And it is Doohan, Hadjar, Hülkenberg, and Alonso that join Esteban Ocon in that bottom 5. And Jack Doohan, 17 thousandths of a second. Yuki Tsunoda, oh my goodness me, that was close. But It is the first time we've seen both Red Bull cars into Q3 this season, which is probably not what you'd expect to be saying, considering they are the current holders of the Drivers' Championship through Max Verstappen and have been the team that have absolutely dominated this era of Formula One. Nico Hülkenberg, 13th fastest, and just coming around, could not find the pace inside of that stakes Alba, and a real gap actually between sort of Hadjar and Hülkenberg. Hadjar, I think, can find himself a little bit unlucky. It's been very, very quick throughout the weekend. Just didn't quite have it on that final lap. Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly, the two drivers that joined the top 8, as we'd expect them to be, in that final top 10 shootout of the afternoon then. As I say, Doohan, Hadjar, Hülkenberg and Alonso, the 4 drivers that join Esteban Ocon after his big shunt at turn 3 just 4 minutes into that qualifying session. They are the 5 that have dropped out, having made it through to Q2. Alex Albon, Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoleto, Lance Stroll, and Ollie Behrman, the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q1. Ooh, yellow flag in sector 4. Turn 4. That might just be a little bit of gravel that they're getting off of the track between the 2 sessions, because there's no cars out there at the moment, as we're just seeing the final pair of Hamilton and Norris make their way into the pit lane before we get underway with the final part of qualifying. Who have we got then? Which of the McLarens do you think it will be? It feels like it is very much a shootout between Piastri and Norris in this one, doesn't it? I would be very surprised if we don't see one of those two on the top grid position for tomorrow's race. It'd be probably quite surprising if the other one isn't just behind as well in second spot. Gasly, I don't imagine be able to hold on to third there. It'd be very, very impressive if he does. Oh, Nico Hülkenberg, I think, has just had a lap time deleted. He has indeed. So Hülkenberg is actually going to drop behind Esteban Ocon, despite Esteban Ocon putting his Haas car in the wall, because Hülkenberg isn't going to have technically done a lap there. So Hülkenberg, no respective flying lap time. And that is deleted. Drops him down a couple of positions. Gains, I guess, Alonso and Ocon will be happy to see that come through. McLaren 1-2 for the race tomorrow. Does feel like that's going to be the case, doesn't it? But then you never know. We've seen comings together of McLaren teammates in the past. Maybe we're looking at the next sort of Senna Prost bouncing around and bouncing into one another. Why under Ocon? Because Ocon would have done the faster time in Q1 of the 2 drivers. So it kind of goes back. Antonelli and Russell failing to follow race director's instructions. It's going to be investigated after the session. It's going to be investigated after the session. So we'll have to wait and see what happens to the Mercedes cars there. I imagine that'll be a fine of some kind. I can't imagine they get like disqualified from qualifying or anything like that. Be interested if they did. Both of the Mercedes cars starting from the back of the grid would be very entertaining to watch. Kimi in a Lotus. Oh, the dream. I loved Lotus back then. Why aren't Lotus still in Formula One? Be great for me. Lotus are like down the road from me as well. I worked there for a bit. Well, worked. Lando really looking planted in that McLaren car, just looking at the replays. I'll tell you who's not looking planted. Max Verstappen through that middle part of the lap. He is wrestling with that Red Bull all the way through turn 5, 6, 7, and 8. Favorite track? It's on the board. It's literally it's on the board. It's on the wall. It's on the wall. Yeah, Verstappen all over the place, actually. Am I from Norfolk? I am. I'm there right now. How do I remember Lotus? I'm like 15. I wish I was 15. I'm much older than 15. Right then. So how we get set up for the final qualifying session of the day. 10 minutes on the board. Ready and raring to go. Top 10 shootout. Feels like it's going to be between the two McLaren cars, but never say never. Max Verstappen proved that in Suzuka. Pierre Gasly is in the mix as well by the looks of things. The Ferraris are looking a little bit better than they have over the first 3 race weekends. Obviously, Carlos Sainz in the mix for the top 10 for the first time in his Williams outings. So very, very tight indeed. Who's my favourite driver at the moment? Lando Norris, Piastri. I'm a McLaren boy, McLaren guy. I like Gasly as well. I like Sainz. I like a lot of the grid, you know. Tsunoda I quite enjoy. But let's see how we're getting on then. Fernando Alonso making his way down the pit lane, having a little look in the McLaren garage. Wondering why his McLaren wasn't this quick. Made that move over to McLaren at the worst possible time, it felt. And classic GP2 engine inside of that McLaren car. And Yuki Tsunoda is going to be out pretty early in the running order. Track is clear then. And we're going to get underway. Tsunoda is going to take the first slot in the pit lane. There's actually something on the front right tyre of Yuki Tsunoda's car. Don't know what that is. Max Verstappen's going to slot in behind, so the Red Bull's wanting to get out early. Q3 is going to get underway in just a few seconds' time. Drivers already making their way onto the pits. The Williams of Carlos Sainz trying to butt in as well. The Red Bulls and the Mercedes cars were already making their way down the pit lane, and Carlos Sainz just sort of slotted in half behind Kimi Antonelli. It's just about going to be able to do so. And we're going to get underway then. Green flag waved. The green light at the end of the pit lane. And Yuki Tsunoda is going to be the first man to get out on track here for Q2. It's going to be very similar, actually, to what we just saw in the last 11 minutes of Q2. Q3, just 12 minutes long, so just an extra minute for the drivers to play around with. And likely that we're going to see a bit of a dramatic end to qualifying here. Hamilton and Leclerc side by side at the moment. Hamilton getting out just ahead of Charles Leclerc in the running order. Yuki Tsunoda, though, is going to be the first man to set a lap time. As I say, 2 laps I'm expecting from the majority of drivers in this final qualifying session. Depending on how tight the timings are, it's going to get very close indeed. Tsunoda, Verstappen, Antonelli, the first 3 out on track. Will Yuki cook? It's not looking amazing. He just snuck himself through to Q3. But you never know. You can sneak through to Q3 and then turn on the gas when you need to. Tsunoda might be able to just about do that. Kimi Antonelli just coming down towards turn 9 and turn 10. By far the trickiest couple of corners on the track. I've seen enough. End the session now. Hamilton and Leclerc then finally have made their way onto the track. It just goes to show how much space they do like to leave in the pit lane. They were in the queue right at the beginning of the session. They've been waiting there for a couple of minutes. Piastri and Norris deciding to get out there now. 14th time of asking, in your opinion, which F1 driver had the best mediocre car? I have no idea. The best. What was the best in a mediocre car? Alonso, 2012. I don't know any other ones beyond 2000 and probably 6, 7. Verstappen actually slower than Tsunoda in the first sector. Ooh. Tsunoda, maybe. Well, out-qualify Max Verstappen. That'd be one for the books. When's the last time Max Verstappen was out-qualified? It's going to be a season or so. Antonelli actually slower than Tsunoda as well through the first sector. So Tsunoda holding on to that fastest first sector, even with a few drivers now having completed it. Here comes Carlos Sainz to complete the first sector. Be amazing if Carlos Sainz nabs it off Yuki Tsunoda, wouldn't it? Here goes, though. And it's actually George Russell who nabs the fastest first sector. Yuki Tsunoda only puts in a 131.6. So that is not going to be probably anywhere close to any kind of qualifying time that gets you pole position. But we'll have to wait and see. Max Verstappen, a 132.0. I think everyone's just trying to get a lap time on the board. Used tyres on the majority of drivers out there. I think Russell and Antonelli, the only drivers on fresh softs, and Antonelli therefore goes top of the timing sheets with a 131.4. George Russell, though, has been quickest of anybody in the first and second sectors, so he's easily going to go to the top. And Max Verstappen really struggling on the brakes at the moment. Somebody not struggling on the brakes, George Russell, through turn 15 he comes down towards the start-finish line. And that is a stunning lap from George Russell, a 130.3. That's much more like what I'm expecting a pole position time to look like. And really does set the standard there. George Russell, that is a very good spot to put yourself in. Piastri and Norris still to come, of course. Leclerc and Hamilton on flying laps, but on used tyres. I think Hamilton is just going to slot in a second behind George Russell. Charles Leclerc, something similar. Piastri and Norris are both on used tyres, but have gone fastest in their respective sectors. Piastri in the second sector, Norris is fastest in the first sector. Charles Leclerc gets himself onto the provisional front row for now. But here come the two McLaren cars. Piastri goes to the top of the timing sheet. And Lando Norris, can he do it? Can he beat his teammate? No. Lando Norris slots into third place behind George Russell. It was a pretty poor final sector from Lando Norris. A 130.2 from Oscar Piastri. Just sneaks him a tenth and a part ahead of George Russell. And Max Verstappen actually lost 3.5 tenths of a second at turn 4. Just a wobble out of there. Rear end of the car just stepped out as he was getting towards the... Ooh, and actually, I don't know if he completely went off the track there, so might have that lap time deleted. Not that it sort of stands for much anyway, as he is 10th at the moment. Kimi Antonelli, a big lock up into turn 1. That's where Kimi Antonelli lost the majority of his lap time. And Antonelli and Russell were actually on fresh sets of tyres, so that's a little bit frustrating for Russell and Antonelli. I think Piastri and Norris were on scrubbed sets, but they'd only done one lap on them previously, so they weren't like ridiculously scrubbed. Whereas Leclerc and Hamilton were on a used set. So was Tsunoda, Gasly, Sainz, and Verstappen. But here we are then. 5 minutes on the clock. You'd imagine everybody is going to get a fresh set of soft compound tyres on. And Piastri holds provisional pole. Can he guarantee that? And there you are. Lap time actually deleted for Kimi Antonelli. Going wide at turn 14, I think that said. Oh, I missed it. Track time, lap. Turn 11, sorry. Kimi Antonelli had gone wide. Oh, Hamilton has just had a track time deleted. Oh, this is getting a bit messy. Because Hulkenberg is, just had a lap time deleted, which drops him down to P16 and actually means Alex Albon should have been in Q2. That is not what you want to see, is it? So Alex Albon actually should have gone through to Q2, not Nico Hulkenberg. But the lap time wasn't deleted in time. Wow. Wow. Okay, that is really odd for Nico Hulkenberg then. So Nico Hulkenberg, lap time is deleted, but it was his lap time, meaning that Alex Albon should have been in Q2, but Alex Albon wasn't in Q2. But because Hulkenberg didn't set a lap time in Q2, he then drops down to 16th place. Wow. Williams need to get on the phone and have a little chat about that, I think, because that is really, really annoying for Alex Albon. Should have been through to Q2, but didn't get the chance to set a lap time in Q2. Goodness gracious. The FIA certainly at it again. The stewards. Awkward. Okay. Let's put that to one side for the moment. 2.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. 10 drivers at play. Hopefully none of them shouldn't have actually been here. Yeah, Hulkenberg had 2 lap times deleted. Antonelli and Hamilton, by the way, also had their lap times deleted, but for laps that have actually happened in this session. So at least that makes a little bit more sense. Antonelli and Hamilton 9th and 10th respectively then. Goodness me. Poor Albon. Oscar Piastri at the top of the timing sheets. And we're going to see the final flying laps come in. It's going to be Yuki Tsunoda once again to be the first man across the start-finish line. We've then got Antonelli and Russell just behind. Hamilton is there. Leclerc also. Gasly, Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, and Carlos Sainz is going to be the last man across the line. Piastri versus Norris then. Norris is going to be across the line after his teammate. Currently Piastri at the top of the timing sheets as Kimi Antonelli is starting his final flying lap of the session. His teammate George Russell behind him. Keep an eye on Yuki Tsunoda's lap times though at 29.0 through the first sector from Tsunoda is an improvement on his last first sector time, but not purple. Kimi Antonelli is also improving, so the tyres are coming towards the drivers. Fresh set of soft compound tyres for everybody out there right now. And it's all going to start to tumble. George Russell goes quickest of anybody through the first sector. That is a mighty first sector from George Russell at 28.7. Don't count out George Russell in the battle for pole position here. Really seems to have the bit between his teeth at the Bahrain International Circuit. But Norris and Piastri are just coming around to start their flying laps. In fact, Norris is going to wait for Yuki Tsunoda to make his way past. And Norris is going to have a little bit of a tow from Yuki Tsunoda ahead of him. That's played into Norris's hands quite nicely as he's going to get that little bit of extra speed down towards turn 1. Keep an eye on Piastri and Norris's first sector timings then. Russell has just gone fastest in the middle sector of anybody as well. Kimi Antonelli is going to come across the line and actually go to the top of the timing sheets with a 1:30.213. But George Russell is going to go even quicker than that. George Russell up into the 1:30.0. So it's going to need a 1:29 really to get in front of George Russell here. All of a sudden, the Mercedes car has just absolutely come to life. Russell and Antonelli finding that lap time. Here comes Charles Leclerc. Leclerc splits the Mercedes to go second fastest. and is still a tenth and a half behind George Russell. Piastri is going quicker in the first sector. Norris has actually made a little error somewhere in the first sector. It's yellow from Norris. It doesn't maybe look like Lando Norris is in the mix there. Piastri, though, has gone a tenth quicker than Russell through the middle sector. Norris is a couple of attempts down. Verstappen is not going to be in the mix here. He's only 7th fastest. It's Piastri through the final couple of corners. This is Piastri's to lose as he comes through the final sector. He's going to go across the line and go to the top into the 129s. He goes a couple attempts quicker than George Russell, and Lando Norris can't do it. Norris stays 6th, is behind Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Here comes Carlos Sainz as the last man across the line, and he goes 8th fastest, puts that Williams ahead of Hamilton and Tsunoda. It is a real mix at the top of the grid then. Piastri takes pole position once again for the second time in his Formula One career. George Russell slots into second place behind him after a very, very solid final qualifying session from George Russell. 2 really quick laps from the Briton to put him on the front row. Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli will start in 3rd and 4th just behind. Lando Norris in the McLaren is going to be beside Pierre Gasly. And actually behind Pierre Gasly. Gasly 5th, Lando Norris 6th. Verstappen and Sainz side by side as they were teammates once upon a time. Their careers got in very different directions, but they're going to start beside one another once again. Verstappen 7th and Carlos Sainz in 8th. Lewis Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda, the final drivers to make it through to Q3. The final drivers starting in the point scoring places. Hamilton 9th and Yuki Tsunoda 10th. To run through the back 10 then, because there have been a little bit of changes than we were expecting. Jack Doohan is going to start in 11th place. Isaac Hadjar starting 12th. Fernando Alonso 13th. Esteban Ocon, despite smashing his Haas car to pieces, is going to start in 14th place, unless he obviously needs to start from the pit lane if they need to change things around inside of that Haas car. Alex Albon starts 15th place, despite not getting through to Q2, because Nico Hülkenberg drops into 16th place. Then we've got Liam Lawson and Gabriel Bortoletto starting on the penultimate row of the grid, with Lance Stroll and Ollie Behrman at the back of the pack. A little bit of a strange end to qualify there, but a very, very quick lap from Oscar Piastri. Need to see the onboards from Lando Norris to see what went wrong. Just seemed like the first sector was a little bit off for Lando Norris compared to where he should and kind of could have been inside of that McLaren car. Wonder if actually letting Yuki Tsunoda go past him as he was coming around turn 14 and 15 actually was more of a hindrance than a help. You'd imagine it would help him sort of get down towards turn 1 that little bit quicker, but seemed to play against him. And therefore, we have Lando Norris starting 6th place. I'm going to disappear then. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We might be actually quite close to that 120,000 mark, but absolutely loved that. That was really, really enjoyable. Oscar Piastri, the man of the moment. Can Oscar Piastri get himself towards the top end of the driver standings? The 2 drivers ahead of him, Norris and Verstappen, starting 6th and 7th. You never know. Maybe tomorrow is Piastri's day. Here's the replay of Lando Norris's lap time then. Oh, it was turn 1. Just a bit of wheel spin out of turn 1. Lost him a 10th or 2 there. And by the time he got around, yeah, you're just chasing your own tail at that point. You're seeing the delta on the wheel. It's negative. You know you've got so much time to make up. And Lando Norris maybe just pushed it a little bit harder than he needed to through that first couple of corners. Thank you guys so much.